Black Panther comes out this week, guys. Who's excited? Anticipation has reached fever pitch. It's been getting great reviews. Screenings are selling out left and right. It's a good thing it's a 3-day weekend coming up, because otherwise, I don't know when I'd be able to see it. With all this hype, you're probably wondering if there are any good Black Panther comics you should be reading in order to get yourself even more excited for the film. Or say you're watching this after the movie's already come out, maybe you want a little bit more Black Panther in your life and don't want to wait for Infinity War. Well, have I got the comics for you, or rather, one comic specifically. The 1998 Black Panther run by Christopher Priest. See, we're still going to talk about comics on this show. Black Panther has had a very interesting history in Marvel Comics, and who better to tell you about the history of the world's first black superhero than me, a white guy. Black Panther first debuted in 1966 in the pages of Fantastic Four number 52 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. While he was always popular, he even had a few solo series here and there, he never seemed to break into the upper echelon of Marvel characters. He had good stories, but could never seem to break through the glass ceiling and reach the A-list status like Spider-Man and Captain America did. It also didn't help that they kept trying to change him in ways that just felt disingenuous or superfluous or just flat out wrong for the character. Like the time they changed his name to Black Leopard, or they gave him a Batman-like costume. Enter Christopher Priest. Or just Priest if you're nasty. In 1998, he began work on Black Panther Volume 3 with the help of artists like Mark Texeira, Sal Valuta, and many others. It was part of the Marvel Knights imprint, a line of comics that was designed to target an older demographic with much darker, more mature story content. This was the imprint that gave us both Garth Ennis' Punisher and Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil, both considered to be some of the best runs in those characters' respective histories. And Priest's Black Panther certainly fit that mold, but it wasn't mature in a grimdark and violent sort of way. It was more mature in a literary way, if that makes any sort of sense. One of the biggest things that Priest did during his time on Black Panther was reestablish T'Challa as the King of Wakanda. Not a superhero, but an actual political figure who happens to dress up like a cat and beat up bad guys, but a political figure nonetheless. His duties are specifically to Wakanda and its people. Sure, in the beginning of this run, he travels to America to investigate the death of a slain child, but that death does lead him back to a greater conspiracy affecting his people in his homeland. And politics are a running theme throughout all 62 issues of this series. The social and political context of the story never feels too heavy-handed or forced down the reader's throats. Everything that's there feels smart and obvious in a way that belongs and adds to the story. And Priest makes sure not to write Black Panther as a typical flawed Marvel superhero with all these problems and baggage that he has to try and overcome. He's not Spider-Man, who's always in over his head but is trying his best. He's not Iron Man, whose overconfidence will be his undoing. Black Panther is a smart, cunning, strategizing badass who isn't afraid to do something like rip out Mephisto's heart to defeat him. And throughout this series, he's treated like an outsider, not just by Americans who are worried about some foreign king coming into their land, but also by the Avengers as well. He makes it pretty clear that he doesn't view the Avengers as friends, but as people who are just basically on the same side as him. This is in stark contrast to years of comics that blatantly depict Black Panther just palling around with Earth's mightiest heroes. Like I said before, this series first came out in 1998. I was only 11 at the time and wasn't reading comics with any sort of regularity. Something like this was definitely not on my radar. I wouldn't read this series until much later, and I'm really surprised at how well it holds up. It is a very 90s comic book. The artwork and tone just scream of that decade. And it's a very wordy series at times. I said before it was literary, but some of these issues take it too far. It feels almost like a book more so than a comic book. But it's not 90s in a way that early Image comics are 90s. It's not dated so much as it captures a moment in time and easily transports the reader back to that era with very vivid clarity. Also, this book is very funny. Not in your face like Deadpool, but very smart and subtle in its use of humor. In a way, it's very similar to another Priest creation of the era, Quantum and Woody. Both use a similar style of humor and story structure, and they both hold up very, very well today. Honestly, the worst part about this series is that it's incomplete. The book struggled with sales throughout its run and ended after 62 issues, leaving a lot of plot threads unresolved. But over the years, it's achieved the cult status and acclaim that it rightfully deserves. I mean, hell, that's how I heard about it all these years later. And reading it now, you get a very good sense of who T'Challa is and just why he's such an important character in the Marvel Universe. Christopher Priest was the first African-American editor at both Marvel and DC. While I couldn't find confirmation of this online, I'm pretty sure he was also the first African-American writer of Black Panther as well. And you can tell the way T'Challa is depicted in this is just so different from everything that came before it. It speaks with an authenticity that only a black writer can bring. Look at me talking about authentic black voices. Who the f do I think I am?
Stupid gay white man.
This series helped pave the way for future Black Panther writers like Reginald Hudlin and Ta-Nehisi Coates. And in a lot of ways, this has held up a lot better than the other Marvel Knights comics of the time, and that includes Daredevil and Punisher. As a stupid white man, I can't really speak to the impact or importance of seeing a black hero depicted with such maturity and finesse, but I do know a good comic book story when I see it, and trust me, this is a damn good comic book story. It's unlike anything that came before it, and pretty much everything since this came out, including the Ta-Nehisi Coates run and the upcoming movie, owe just about everything to Christopher Priest's work on Black Panther. Let me know down below or anywhere on the internet if you've read Christopher Priest's Black Panther work. What did you think of it? Did this inspire you to go read it? Or do you prefer a different Black Panther story by a different writer or artist team? I will have Amazon links to all 4 volumes of the Christopher Priest run in the description below, so click on those, get some good Black Panther comics, and help support this channel. Of course, new videos every Tuesday and Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern is Wulff Den Live, so subscribe to see all of that, like this video, and share it with a friend who's excited to see Black Panther but doesn't know what comic to start reading. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time.